The cameras were rolling. The committee chamber buzzed with restless energy. Jim Jordan, leaning forward in his chair, cut the figure of a man hungry for confrontation. His voice was sharp, forceful, dripping with condescension. He thought this would be his moment to corner. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, to expose her, to silence her with rapid-fire interruptions and rehearsed talking points. But Crockett didn't flinch. Her eyes locked on him, silent, calm, almost surgical in her stillness. The room leaned in, sensing that something was about to break. Jordan pressed again, his tone rising. "Answer the question! Why can't you just admit—" But Crockett didn't stumble into his trap. Instead, with measured precision, she delivered a razor-sharp legal counter rooted in fact and law. Her words sliced through Jordan's bluster, leaving his argument exposed as hollow, fragile. A pause lingered in the air, heavy and electric. The audience gasped. Even fellow lawmakers froze, caught off guard by the clarity of her retort. For the first time in the exchange, Jordan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His eyes darted, his usual confidence cracked. It wasn't just that Crockett had answered his question. She had dismantled it, piece by piece, until it collapsed under its own weight. And in that instant, everyone watching could see it. Jim Jordan, the self-styled inquisitor, had no response. But this was only the beginning of his public unraveling. To understand the magnitude of what unfolded, you have to recognize who Jim Jordan is in Washington. He's built his career on dominating hearings with rapid-fire attacks, bullying witnesses, and seizing headlines with theatrics. His strategy? Keep opponents rattled, keep them defensive, and never let them breathe. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't rattled. For viewers at home, the stakes couldn't have been higher. This wasn't just another political skirmish. This was a clash of values. Jordan represented the old guard of performative outrage, where volume substitutes for truth. Crockett represented something different. A new generation of leaders armed with clarity, courage, and lived experience. As Jordan raised his voice, painting broad accusations with no factual grounding, Crockett leaned back, composed. She didn't need to shout to be heard. She used something far more devastating: precision. Every progressive viewer, every immigrant family who'd ever been told to stay quiet, every woman who had ever been interrupted in a boardroom or classroom saw themselves in her restraint and her power. The room could sense it too. This wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a turning of the tide. What Jordan thought would be an ambush was quickly becoming a showcase of his own intellectual shortcomings. And just as Crockett prepared her next point, the stakes became clear. This wasn't only about defending herself. This was about defending the very idea that truth, law, and dignity still matter in America. What came next would reveal just how unprepared Jordan truly was. Jim Jordan has long cultivated an image as the conservative warrior. A founding member of the Freedom Caucus, he's known for fiery speeches, constant interruptions, and his trademark uniform, shirt sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, a man projecting the look of relentless combat. But behind the theatrics lies a pattern, one that Jasmine Crockett would soon expose. Jordan has been accused time and again of using intimidation rather than substance. In hearings, he shouts down opponents, weaponizes time limits, and drowns the truth in noise. Supporters cheer his aggression. Critics see it as a smokescreen. Either way, it's a style that rarely faces effective resistance. Until now, when Jordan squared off against Crockett, he assumed it would be like every other time, a performance where he dominated, where the sound bites favored him. What he didn't anticipate was that Crockett wasn't there to play his game. She wasn't intimidated by his volume. She came armed with clarity, and clarity is Jordan's kryptonite. As the hearing unfolded, viewers began to notice the cracks. Each time Jordan repeated a question without substance, Crockett met it with calm legal grounding. Each time he tried to twist her words, she untangled them effortlessly. It was like watching a veteran boxer throw wild punches, only to be countered with surgical precision. Jordan's history made this moment more dramatic. He was the man who had shouted down witnesses, who had spent years turning hearings into partisan theater. But on this day, in this chamber, his usual tactics backfired. And for millions watching, the villain's mask was slipping. Who is Jasmine Crockett? To her supporters, she's more than a congresswoman. She's a voice forged in the fires of struggle, a civil rights attorney who has spent her life standing up for people silenced by systems, stacked against them. Raised with grit, driven by principle, Crockett doesn't just know the law. She embodies the fight to make it serve the people. Before Congress, Crockett worked in courtrooms across Texas, defending the voiceless and challenging injustices others were too afraid to touch. She's not unfamiliar with aggression, with opponents who use bluster instead of reason. But through it all, her weapon has always been the same: unshakable calm and a mastery of the law. That background is what prepared her for Jim Jordan. When Jordan tried to bulldoze through her arguments, Crockett didn't just respond as a politician. She responded as a lawyer who has stared down prosecutors and judges, who has argued cases with lives on the line. Her poise wasn't an act, it was muscle memory. This was the contrast America saw. Jordan, the career showman, versus Crockett, the career fighter for justice. And the symbolism went deeper. Crockett, a black woman in a chamber too often dominated by white male aggression, stood her ground without raising her voice. She flipped the script. The audience at home saw it. Social media lit up with praise. To so many, she wasn't just answering Jordan. She was answering decades of silencing, dismissing, and disrespecting women of color in power. Her story made her response resonate beyond the chamber, because every word she spoke wasn't just for herself. It was for everyone who had ever been told they didn't belong at the table. And as her calm dismantled Jordan's fury, the stage was set for one of the most humiliating moments of his career. The tension escalated quickly. Jordan, visibly frustrated, began repeating the same question, louder each time, as if volume could create substance. He interrupted. He gestured wildly. His face flushed red. Crockett remained steady. "Congressman," she said, her voice clear but firm, "if you're going to ask me about the law, then let's start with the law itself." The room quieted. Jordan, caught off guard, fumbled. He tried again, shifting his words, but Crockett was ready. Each time she responded with legal grounding, citing precedent, pointing to statutes, refusing to let him drag her into half-truths. For viewers, the contrast was stunning. Jordan looked less like a skilled interrogator, and more like a man exposed for not understanding the very legal framework he was attacking. The escalation revealed a deeper truth. Jordan's power came not from knowledge, but from performance. And Crockett was dismantling the performance in real time. The climax was approaching. Jordan was about to face a counterattack, so devastating that it would leave him visibly shaken. And then it happened. Crockett leaned forward, her tone calm but laced with finality. "Congressman Jordan," she began, "you keep asking me to admit something that isn't legally accurate. You want sound bites. But here's the reality. The law doesn't bend to your talking points." The silence was immediate. Her words carried the weight of final judgment. She went on, breaking down his argument step by step. Each flaw, each omission, each manipulation, exposed in plain language. She spoke not like a politician, but like a teacher, guiding the room through the truth he had hoped to obscure. You can shout, you can interrupt, but facts don't change. The law doesn't change. And the American people deserve better than circus acts when we're talking about their rights. The audience reacted audibly, gasps, a murmur of approval. Even some on Jordan's side looked uneasy. Jordan opened his mouth, but no words came. His lips tightened. His eyes flickered down at his papers, desperate for a lifeline. But it was too late. Crockett had delivered the blow. The clip would play endlessly online. Jordan, speechless, while Crockett sat unwavering, her words echoing. And as the moment settled, one truth became undeniable. Jim Jordan had been humiliated on live television. But the aftermath was just beginning. The clip spread like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags trended nationwide. Crockett wins. Jordan exposed. Nar truth over noise. Social media lit up with praise for Crockett's composure and command. Memes mocked Jordan's stunned silence. Commentators across networks, even those usually friendly to Jordan, acknowledged the optics. He had been dismantled in front of the nation. Late-night hosts replayed the exchange with biting humor. Editorials called it a turning point, not just for Crockett, but for how hearings themselves are perceived. For years, viewers had grown numb to the noise of politics. But here was clarity cutting through. For Crockett's supporters, it was vindication. For Jordan's, it was damage control. And yet, the cultural resonance ran deeper than politics. To millions, Crockett's moment wasn't just about law. It was about dignity, representation, and the refusal to be silenced. But the most powerful reaction came from those who saw in her victory a glimpse of what leadership could look like. In the end, this wasn't only about a congressional clash, it was about values. Jasmine Crockett reminded America that strength isn't measured in decibels. It isn't the one who shouts the loudest who wins, but the one who speaks with truth and conviction. In a chamber where arrogance has too often masqueraded as authority, she proved that dignity can disarm bluster. For immigrants, for women, for anyone who has been told to sit down and stay quiet, her performance was more than political theater. It was personal validation. It was proof that composure and principle can withstand even the loudest storm. The moral lesson was clear. The law matters, facts matter, and leadership grounded in truth will always outlast the noise. But as America celebrated her victory, one question lingered. If Crockett could dismantle Jordan so thoroughly in a single hearing, what might she do next on the national stage? And so the clip will live on, replayed, reshared, remembered. The day Jim Jordan's tactics finally met their match. The day Jasmine Crockett didn't just hold her ground, she owned the stage. But here's the thing. Moments like this aren't just about one politician or one hearing. They're about us, the people watching. The people deciding what kind of leadership we want to amplify. So, if you felt the power of Crockett's words, if you saw yourself in her calm strength, if you believe America needs more leaders who trade noise for truth, then let's make this moment matter. Smash that like button to push this story further. Subscribe so you don't miss the next political showdown that reshapes the conversation. And hit the bell so you're first to see when history unfolds in real time. Because this wasn't just a takedown. This was a reminder, dignity still wins. And when the truth speaks, even the loudest bully can be silenced.